Welcome to Industry Ignited, the podcast where we explore bold ideas with leaders across the industrial, manufacturing, and B2B sectors. I'm your host, Dr. Leeanne Aguilar. Today, we're stepping into the world of biotechnology and pharmaceuticals, an industry that relies on precision, process innovation, and scalable systems to achieve real-world impact. Joining me is David Lloyd, President and CEO of Endurex Pharmaceuticals. Under his leadership, Endurex is advancing a novel peptide-directed nanoparticle drug delivery platform designed to tackle some of the toughest challenges in medicine, like triple-negative breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and glioblastoma. With roots in engineering, systems thinking, and collaboration with institutions like MD Anderson, Endurex represents a powerful intersection of science, innovation, and industrial-grade process discipline. Today, we'll explore David's leadership journey, the manufacturing mindset behind drug delivery innovation, and how Endurex is building scalable systems that could redefine patient outcomes in the future of healthcare. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very pleased to be here.
I'm glad to have this conversation today. Thank you. David, you've been leading Endurex for nearly a decade. Can you share what drew you into pharmaceutical innovation and how your career path prepared you for this role?
I guess it didn't really prepare me at all. The previous management of Endurex decided to pursue other opportunities, and I had been doing some work with them on financial matters, being an escaped CPA myself, when the opportunity to lead the company came up. And I went to Dan Van Hoff, who was at that time the director of the Comprehensive Cancer Center here in Tucson, and asked him if he thought this thing could have legs, and he did. So here I am. My background is as an entrepreneur and business person, so primarily in financial stuff. So it's been a voyage of discovery with my team, learning a lot about the science aspect of it, and that's the history.
Great. Many of our listeners come from industrial and manufacturing backgrounds. What parallels do you see between leading a biotech company and running an engineering or manufacturing firm?
You know, that's an interesting question. I don't probably have a very good answer to it at this point because we are still in the early optimization stage, whereas where we will need to go is more into the kind of environment that you might characterize as industrial manufacturing. But there are still some of the same aspects in terms of planning, developing pilot programs, and gradually optimizing them, and then scaling them up into something that is reproducible and economical and efficient as well. So at a high level, I think there are some parallels, but we are actually more at the what you might call, I guess, the invention end rather than the industrial manufacturing end.
Okay. Yeah. So right now you're still in the early stages, I guess, of the innovation process.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And Endurex is tackling hard to treat conditions. What motivated you to personally and professionally take on this challenge?
Well, I mentioned Dan Van Hoff. My late wife had been a patient advocate for him at the cancer center, and she died in 2012 of recurrence of breast cancer. So this was an introduction as a caregiver to the terminal phase of cancer. And I certainly saw, as I'm sure other caregivers do, that there is a great opportunity for improvement here. So that definitely provided a motivation when the opportunity arose. And I think I was a situation of being in the right place at the right time more than anything else.
That makes sense. Yeah. Sometimes opportunities just present themselves, and having a history of a loved one going through that journey, I guess, provides motivation as well, which I know is the case in a lot of companies or a lot of innovations in general. Drug delivery at scale is as much of a process challenge as a scientific one. How does Endurex's platform rethink that process compared to traditional?
Well, so traditional chemotherapy, bluntly put, we administer a toxic chemical in the expectation that it is going to kill the fast-growing cancer cells preferentially. And so there is very little actual targeting of the chemotherapeutic agent. It basically is received systemically, and because of its toxicity, high probability, and certainly well known to cancer patients and their support network, high probability of adverse effects, not only during treatment, but after treatment. So what you're left with is damaged nerve endings, brain fog, a number of other conditions that may not go away for the rest of your life. Traditional chemotherapy, first of all, is really not that effective because cancer is an interesting biological phenomenon. It's extremely good at surviving. And if you hit it with something and you don't kill it all, resistance is going to build up. It's going to go and find other places in the body where it can grow. That's metastasis. We are agnostic as to what chemotherapeutic agent we carry, and we carry more than just chemotherapeutic agents, but we are focused on delivering. We're focused on delivering the agent to the right place, to the tumor, and not to healthy tissue. And that's easy to say, but hard to do, because what we've chosen is a carrier that typically, if nothing else is done, it will accumulate in the liver and the spleen. And therefore, since we're carrying these toxic agents, there could be cumulative toxicity, even though we are trying to deliver to the tumor mass. So it's developing the delivery mechanism so that it does not do that and ends up being more effective because a greater concentration of the chemotherapeutic agent can be developed in the tumor, killing more of it earlier on. That's the difference that we are working on to bring to chemotherapy, for example.
Okay, so this tumor-specific targeting to deliver therapies more efficiently, can you break it down on how it works so it's understandable for the audience?
Yeah, so everybody in the audience sees this every day. I'm going to use the FedEx or post office model. We basically have a nanoparticle that you can think of as the box that FedEx or the post office is going to use. We put an address on it, basically utilizing a concept that was developed by our emeritus founder, Erkki Ruoslahti, of cellular zip codes. So we now can put the box in the transport mechanism, and it will arrive at the destination that the address tells it to. When it gets there, just like FedEx, you want to open the box and be able to utilize what's in it. So this is really what we do. Our box is a polymeric nanoparticle. That's not the only type of nanoparticle that could be used here, but it's the one that we are working with for a number of practical reasons. And the peptides are ligands for cell surface receptors. And it's important to notice that these are not necessarily, in fact, we prefer that they not be biologically active receptors, just that they be in the right location. So then we deliver the nanoparticle to the right location. There's another twist to this in that these peptides that are directed the nanoparticle have a kind of interior key. It's called a sender motif, which connects with a protein that is available throughout the body to improve the distribution within the tumor. So once we get to the right place, opening the nanoparticle inside the cell allows the chemotherapeutic agent or the other cargo, because we carry other cargoes as well, to achieve greater effectiveness, because not only are we delivering these one by one, but we're delivering them in combinations as well. And one of the things that's been found over the last number of years is that if you deliver two separate chemotherapeutic agents, if you deliver them separately, you don't get as good an efficacy result as you do if you deliver them in combination within the same FedEx box. So we're able to do that. And maybe we'll talk about this a little in the future. It opens up the possibility in future for some really exciting innovations. Right now, we're basically just utilizing this mechanism to, in the case of cancer, deliver more effectively to tumor tissue and not to healthy tissue.
Okay. Yeah, by that post office system, like you said, really targeting the address, the location of each. Yeah. Uh, so in manufacturing, quality and precision are everything. How does Endurex ensure that its nanoparticle design meets those same principles of reliability, consistency, and scalability?
Yeah, and that is actually where we are right now, because anything that you hang on the nanoparticle, now these nanoparticles are self-assembling polyethylene glycol, actually called diblock copolymers, and they end up being about 100 nanometers in effective diameter. So what we put in them and the peptides that we put on them, any difference in them affects their characteristics, including their ability to deliver to the right place. So the design and optimization of these nanoparticles, or nanocarriers, if you will, when they have their payload and the targeting peptides, there are hundreds of thousands of variables. To go through a design of experiments optimization process is absolutely essential. Anybody can make a nanoparticle. So, this is actually one of the misconceptions, that this is somehow a very simple process. It is to make the nanoparticle. But to make the nanoparticle in the finished form, there are so many variables, and it's not sufficient to simply characterize them physically. They have to work biologically as well. So this is why we're situated where we are, and perhaps we'll talk about this in a second, where we have a full stack of capabilities, everything from conjugation chemistry to nanoparticle formulation to in vitro studies and in vivo studies. And we're situated next to the cancer center so that ultimately we have the opportunity to think about going into patients. Very few pharmaceutical companies have that full stack of capabilities available to them in the context of optimizing nanoparticle formulation. Formulation, yes, they're very sophisticated, but it's somewhat different technology that they're using.
Okay, right. And I know partnerships are and collaborations are huge in this development. And I know you've partnered with like MD Anderson to secure grants. And how important are partnerships in this ecosystem in collaborating to create this advanced technology?
They are extremely important. In the work that we did with MD Anderson and some of the other partnerships of that sort that we have developed, that gives us the opportunity to tap into a level of experience in the application of these delivery systems that we would not have ourselves. Once we have optimized the candidate use case of the delivery system, then we will need to partner with pharmaceutical companies. So the opportunity here is for us to be able to improve the effectiveness and safety and patient experience of their existing approved drug. And that really is the starting point, because we don't want to get into a reapproval process of the drugs. That's a very long process, very expensive. Actually, 90% of the drugs that enter clinical trials fail. So we are focused on delivering existing approved effective drugs and making them more effective in more cases with greater safety and, not least, improved patient experience during and after treatment.
Okay, yeah, so that's interesting. So your technology is it's the delivery system. So it's taking the existing drugs and treatments and hopefully decreasing or avoiding some of the side effects, because you're really targeting the specific unhealthy tumor cells.
Absolutely, yeah.
And industries often struggle with scaling, taking a great prototype into full production, for example. What does scaling look like in drug development, and what challenges do you face there?
It's a very big issue, because we will be optimizing at a research scale of production. So in order to move this up to producing the volumes needed for clinical trials and ultimately for marketplace, there's a considerable challenge with the technology. Typically right now, there are a couple of methodologies used to make these nanoparticles, to name them microfluidics or impinging jet. And right now, to scale up, what you do is you have a whole bunch of these things running side by side. That's not going to be the long-term solution. And so there's an opportunity for considerable development, I think, here yet in terms of the kind of manufacturing technologies that will be useful here to scale up. And that's one of the obstacles right now, because everyone says, well, okay, you have a drug delivery system. Why isn't everybody doing this? Well, one of the challenges is the lack of scalability in the existing technologies.
Okay, so more innovation is needed in order to efficiently scale.
Yeah, more development, I think. The technology is well understood, but it's never been tried at the kind of scale that will be needed for market adoption after clinical trials. Now, there's another approach to this. Instead of scaling up to produce large volumes, another possibility is that in treating a cancer patient, the providers generally look at what kinds of chemotherapeutic agents or other agents are going to be optimal for that patient. And it's different for every patient. So possibly another approach, rather than trying to scale up one size fits all, would be to have these small scale units in the treatment center pharmacies so that the patient's providers could identify what is best for that patient, and then the small scale unit could produce exactly what is customized for that patient. Again, there's no reason why that can't be put in practice other than it hasn't been done so far. There are regulatory challenges here, but they can all be met. So it's possible that this small scale approach will be utilized in preference to trying to scale up to the large scale. If you recall, what we're doing is not totally dissimilar to what happened with the COVID-19 vaccine. So after that was optimized, the big issue, because there was such an enormous demand for it, was how do we scale up? And those technologies of lipid nanoparticle scaling were successfully addressed. So we know that there is, and lipid nanoparticles are analogous to the polymeric nanoparticles that we are using. So we know that the technical problems can be addressed. In the case of COVID-19, a lot of money was spent on that.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That's probably not.
So it's probably transferable to, a large degree.
But also will need to be made more efficient and bring the costs down, make it more flexible. So both of these pathways, either scale up or stay at small scale, but tailor the drug product, that's the finished drug, in terms of having both the delivery system and the drug that we're carrying, and tailor it in the location of the patient to something that's optimal for that particular patient.
Right. Okay, right. So that's interesting. Endurex reduces system toxicity in treatment. Can you talk about how innovation in your field also aligns with sustainability of patient care and healthcare systems?
Got to think a little here. So it's a bit surprising that it doesn't align very well. We're still using, for cancer treatment, chemotherapeutic agents, some of which were actually based or had their origins in the mustard gas of the First World War. So when we talk about innovation, we're not really moving very fast in some of these things. And there is regulatory risk averseness, I put it that way, which is quite understandable. You don't want to go out, having anything more poisonous than necessary in the market. But there is also, I would call it, not just safety risk averseness, it's a certain amount of risk averseness of doing things differently. So the innovation that's going to be needed here will probably require that some of those things change. Now, we're just going through a period where we have this break things and change fast mentality coming to it. And I don't think that is what we're talking about. We will need to make these changes and these innovations in a very controlled environment, but one where we can bring the changes to the patient a lot faster than the process goes right now.
Okay, it's faster. Out of curiosity, the targeting system, does that mean that they need less of the drug in their system?
It could mean, because if we can develop the concentration, the concentrations that will be effective against cancer, and we're still just talking about cancer here, by delivering it more localized to the tumor, the corollary of that is we can probably do it with less toxic medication there.
Okay, so less toxic medication, fewer side effects. So overall, the experience for the patient would be improved and it would be more efficient. Yeah. I'm sorry, what was that?
That is the objective.
Okay, right. Just overall improve patient experience and patient outcomes.
So let me actually address that point, because obviously you're looking for improved patient outcomes overall, effectiveness or efficacy. But you're also looking for safety, so that you don't end up with liver toxicity or something of that sort. In today's environment, patient experience is it's not even a third, it's probably a 300th. So this is something that, as treatments get more effective, and they have been getting more effective, there will be a larger and larger cohort of people who have been treated for cancer and ended up with these long-term quality of life diminishing side effects. So, and this is probably more my opinion than the industry at this point, there will need to be more attention paid to the patient experience during and after treatment. And we're not there yet by any means.
Yeah, okay. Right. So there's a lot to be developed still, a lot to learn. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. But overall, that's the hope, that's the goal. Yeah. What excites you most about Endurex's pipeline in the next few years?
Well, we have still at the point where to date we have been largely grant supported, a little bit of founder support, but this has enabled us to propose research plans for a number of different cancers that are hard to treat otherwise, and also for a number of different, sorry, I'm just lost the thought there.
That's okay.
For a number of different cancers, but also for a number of different approaches to treating these cancers. So the approach where you use a toxic chemical to preferentially kill the cancer treatment is a pretty crude way of going about it. There are immunological approaches where you try to alert the body's immune system to the fact that cells are cancerous, so that the immune system, perhaps with a little help, can deal with the problem. And those are, for immunological agents, that is also something that we can carry. So same delivery platform tailored to those active pharmaceutical ingredients. But even beyond that, the ability to carry basically nucleic acid constructs. So what do I mean there? Various types of RNA or even antisense oligos, where you're not just, well, you are treating the patient, but what you're doing is you're fixing the problem that is causing the disease. So if there is a mutation in the tissue that can be corrected by delivering a gene modifying agent, for example, this is really exciting, because these treatments, insofar as they have been developed to date and is still in the very early stage, these are one and done treatments. You develop this, you administer it, and the underlying cause that is driving the disease is removed. So this is a really a holy grail, I guess, in terms of where you would want to go in terms of treatment. We don't want to continue basically poisoning people in the hopes that they're going to get better. We want to understand what's driving their condition, and if we are able to address those drivers directly, and therefore remove the condition, that's the ultimate objective. So what excites us about that is all of these different modalities are things that we can apply our delivery system to. So it gives us a tremendously broad field of use for the technology as we continue to develop it.
Okay, so it's not only improving potential outcomes and efficiency of cancer treatments, but there's a whole wide range of other applications as far as the delivery system actually going in and modifying genes and solving problems like fixing things in the body instead of just treating.
What I didn't also mention is the prophylactic utilization, vaccines. If we can more effectively deliver vaccines that if we can deliver vaccines that are more effective in preventing certain diseases, I mean, that's really the optimal solution, because then you don't have to cure anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So wide range of applications. That's really promising and very exciting. So if Endurex achieves its vision, how do you see this technology changing not just medicine, but the way that industries think about precision, process, and people going forward?
I think I can't really speak for industries outside of the life science area, which itself is a very complex and convoluted industry, if you will, because you have companies like us who are developing a delivery technology. You have others who are discovering drugs. You have the whole process of the clinical trials that are necessary to demonstrate that your drug is, in fact, effective and safe. You have the regulatory concerns, which must be met before you actually get approval. And even after the approval, you need to continue to monitor to make sure that things that you may not have seen in the clinical trial are addressed effectively. And then when you actually get the approval, you have to introduce it to the market. And this is not a trivial thing itself, because there are some very effective drugs out there that had imagined that they were going to generate some pretty impressive levels of revenue, and the physicians, for one or another reason, aren't using them that way. Again, then you get into perhaps education of the folks in the caregivers. And you could discover that even though your drug is effective, that it's either not being covered by insurers, or there's an inconvenience to the way in which it's administered to the patients. So to get to the end point of effective and safe treatment, there is a very long pathway, an awful lot of players, different motivations, because if I am a pharmaceutical company, I'm playing in a very high risk game here. So I need to be sure that I'm only picking things that will be sufficiently successful that they will offset that risk. That's not necessarily aligned to what's needed in the medical marketplace. So getting this beast, I guess, with all these moving parts to work in a more effective way is, to put it mildly, not a trivial process.
Yeah, it sounds that way, right? A lot of moving parts, a lot of complexity. Well, this conversation has been fascinating. It's very exciting what you're developing and the potential of this new technology. David, how can people learn more about Endurex and what you're doing?
We do have a website. I will say that it's a little bit a place marker website, but it does have contact information there, and we'd love to hear from folks. So if there are questions coming out of this, please go to endurexpharm.com and let us know. I'm also on LinkedIn, David Lloyd. Pretty obvious when you get to LinkedIn who I am. And you can message me that way, would be another approach. But again, going back to what I said earlier, this is all about partnering and collaboration. There are people out there that we don't even know about who would be extremely useful to work with as partners. And so welcome any approaches from folks that feel that their situation meets that need.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if this podcast interests you, if you see any opportunity for partnering with Endurex, if you see it might be a good fit, please reach out to David. And David, again, thank you so much. And until next time, for our listeners, stay bold, stay curious, and keep igniting industry.